So the book is called The Purple Line, and it's the story of 6 different women whose lives and destinies are intertwined, but they never meet each other. You see them through their common link, who is their gynecologist. She affects each and every one of their lives deeply, and they in turn have an effect on her life, and that's pretty much what the story is about. You know, as any woman in your lifetime, you visit gynecological clinics, and in India, invariably there's like a really long wait. Like you wait for 2 hours every time you have a gynec appointment. And even before I decided to become an author, I think I'd always been a writer in my head. I started off in advertising. I was a copywriter, and then I was a poet for a little while, giving readings of my work. I think in my head I had always been a writer. So over like 10 years of going to the gynec like every now and then, I think that waiting time, I just kept observing the women around me. And in India, invariably, there are certain types of women you'll always see. Like you'll see the burqa-clad Muslim woman, they're having a lot of babies. You see them, they're really, really young. You'll see the Marwadi woman who will typically come with her mother-in-law, and they're all dressed in a certain way. And, you know, you can almost see the pressure in them to have a male child. And then, you know, you'll see the typical Tam Brahm girl who, you know, is working. She'll come with her mother. I know there's stereotypes that I'm talking about, but you'll definitely see certain types of women again and again. And I guess when I had been waiting at these gynecological clinics, I had just been thinking, okay, you know, what are they like? What are their homes like? What do they do? I would just make up these stories in my head, which I never realized I'd been doing over time. So one day when I had this idea for a novel, it was like these 6 characters just fell into place. The only character I had to work on was the gynecologist, because I think I'd never given her a thought till I decided to write the book. So there's Zubaida, a Muslim woman whose only dream in life is to have a baby girl. She's already had 3 boys, and she's lost her mother at childbirth, and she's never had that daughter-mother relationship, and she was forced to stop school as soon as she gets her period, and she's always been someone who loves to study, who loves to read, and you know, just she used to read so much before she was forced not to go to school. So the only thing that she has on that last day of school is this paperback of To Kill a Mockingbird, which she reads again and again over the years. And so she sort of clings on to the Hindu, the newspaper, the Hindu for dear life, because that's the only thing she can read. So that's Zubaida. Her destiny is intertwined with Megha, the Marwadi woman who is under tremendous pressure to have a boy, to have that male child, who's treated very badly by her family. She lives in a joint family, and she's treated badly. And so both their destinies are intertwined. And then there's Tulsi, who is an art director in an advertising agency. And her husband, Dhruv, who's the only male in this entire story, who's a songwriter, a musician, also an ad guy. And then the other woman is Anjali, who is a performance artist. And you know, a performance artist in India is really like a fish out of water. You don't really have too many performance artists. So Anjali and Tulsi, their lives are intertwined, not their destinies, their lives, so which revolves around Dhruv. And then finally there's Leela, who's the Tamil Brahmin girl, who software engineer, who's always done the right thing, who's very straight, never made mistakes in her life, never taken any risks, and her life or destiny is intertwined with Pooja, who is a teenager, a 16-year-old girl who comes for an abortion. So, so that's pretty much it. And they all go to the gynecologist for various reasons. It's, miscarriages, infertility, pregnancies, abortion, etc. I really used a lot more of my imagination, especially in the case of Zubaida, the Muslim girl, because she is completely different from what a typical Muslim girl in a burqa would be like. She literally defies all the rules just from her thinking. So I did not make her a stereotype in any way. So in her case, she was a complete figment of my imagination. The only thing I tried to check up was facts when she quotes from certain texts, and I verified just facts. I went to Triplicane in Madras, which is this beautiful little place in Madras, which has this very orthodox Muslim community and very orthodox Brahmin community living side by side. So I did go to Triplicane, I did look at the houses, I did explore, I did research those facts, but nothing to do with her personality. In the case of Megha, I did make her like a typical Marwadi girl who, under pressure. So in her case, interestingly, I asked a couple of Marwadi women from joint families, like much later when I was finishing the book, and I'd made like all my assumptions just from looking at them, and it just turned out to be right. They were like, that's exactly how it is. Tulsi and Anjali are more the modern women, and I was in advertising for so many years, so I just didn't have to research either Tulsi or Dhruv, and I mean not for so many years. 2 years in advertising was a lot. So I had her pretty much in my head. I am Tam Brahm, so I also know, like in the case of Leela's character, I do, that was already something that's the kind of background that I came from. So I knew, like, what someone from that kind of background who is pressured into becoming like software engineer would be like. But the only character for whom I did in-depth research, and I spoke to my own gynecologist and another gynecologist, was Mrinalini, the protagonist. Really, she's also the sutradhar, she narrates the whole story, and that is the character I really had to do a lot of research from, because I had, being a medical professional, being a gynecologist, I really needed not just the facts, I needed to know what their lives would be like, why they would choose to be a gynecologist. So yes, that I did talk to a few gynecologists. Definitely. Which is why, there are the stereotypes. And that's why they're called stereotypes, because they're all similar. And there are definitely those which are nothing like it. And at the end of the day, even if you look at stereotypes, every family is still different. They have their own stories. But what I was kind of drawing from were the stereotypes in terms of the family, and then either I made them as completely, defiant and different, or I made them the typical, following the rules. So either they were this or that. Each one is completely different from the other, and even when they're interlinked, it's two at a time. So it's almost like, for me, 3 different stories, because two are linked together. But really the final common thread is that they all finally affect Mrinalini, the gynecologist's life. Because right through the stories you realize what a fantastic gynecologist she is, and she is someone who wants to be there for them more than as a doctor, and she makes a huge difference to each of their lives. But it's only in the end you realize that her own life is so deeply affected by theirs that she needed them as much as they needed her. I think one of the aspects that I deal with in this book is also about female feticide and female infanticide, which is still really happening in the country, and shockingly it's become worse in the last 10 years. One would think that with time going by, these kind of things would get better, but it's just getting a lot worse. The sex ratio in Haryana is something like 770 females to 1,000 males, and it's dwindling. So that's one of the things I deal with when I see it through Megha's character, and also the gynecologist, and also the fact that very often women in India don't get to make choices. There is constantly that pressure that you have to have a child, and that's the thing. It's all these things: adoption, genetics. These are all things that play a role in the book. I would love to believe that it's read equally by men, but and I did not write this only for women, but I have the responses that I've been getting. I get emails and things from women. They do tell me that they can identify with at least one of the characters in the book. I think, it's definitely women who identify more with the book.